Now let's move on to our next session. Anaya Bangar, the child of former Indian cricketer Sanjay Bangar, gained significant media attention a few days ago after publicly sharing their journey as a transgender woman. Anaya's openness about their transition and the challenges faced by transgender individuals sparked important conversations about gender identity, acceptance, and inclusivity. For this session, we have with us Pinky Pramanik, a former track and field athlete who won the silver medal at the 2006 Commonwealth Games and the gold medal at the 2005 Asian Indoor Games and 2006 Asian Games. She won 3 gold medals at the 2006 South Asian Games, winning the 400 and 800 meter events as a member of the relay team. Joining her is Duti Chand, a prominent Indian sprinter who has made significant strides in the world of athletics. She is the current national record holder in the women's 100 meters event. In 2019, she became the first Indian sprinter to win gold at the Universe 8. She also won 2 silver medals in the 100 and 200 meter at the 2018 Asian Games. Duti Chand's journey has been marked by challenges, including a high-profile legal battle against discriminatory regulations. Also with them is Gopi Shankar Madurai, a very well-known activist who is an authority on the legal implications of this issue. Guiding the discussion is Anisha Ghosh, a multimedia journalist. Please welcome all of them on stage, please.
A very good afternoon to everyone here. Thank you for your patience. It took us some time to get the tech in order. And without good audio, as most storytellers would vouch for, and I know there are so many of them in this room, nothing kind of works. This is going to be, I think, something of a path-breaking session, not because I'm moderating it, hello, excuse me, but simply by dint of a rarity. I'm told, reliably, by the 2 women sat at the far end there, that this is the first time Duti Chand and Pinky Pramanik are sharing the dais in a public platform. 2 of India's greatest track and field athletes. This is the 6th edition of the Ekamra Sports Literature Festival, as we all know. And it might have dawned on a number of you, or the question might have cropped up in your head as to why are we discussing transgender participation in women's sport amid a literary fest where we are discussing books. There have been a number of books written on the subject already. And one of the best ones that I have started reading in the recent past is by Sohini Chattopadhyay. And it's a book called The Day I Became a Runner. So anybody who hasn't gotten a copy of that, which features both these athletes and Gopi Shankar Madurai here, do grab a copy as soon as you can. It's waiting for you to take a look at right outside this room. And this session is important. Well, thanks to Sandeep for coming up with this, because the issue of transgender participation in women's sport has gained somewhat renewed topicality in the past 1.5 months alone, because of not so much track and field in the Indian context, and I'm specifying Indian context because it has become more topical in India because of cricket. Surprise, surprise. And why is that so? I think most of us know, and for the uninitiated, former India men's cricketer and a prominent member of the Indian men's coaching staff, a former coaching staff now, who is also a very established coach on the IPL and Indian domestic cricket circuit, Mr. Sanjay Bangar. His child, now I've got to be careful with the linguistical facet of this session. His child, formerly a biological man, decided to transition from Aryan Bangar to now Anaya Bangar. So they identifies as a trans woman now, and they played cricket earlier in Mumbai in India, and they want to play cricket in the country where Anaya Bangar is currently working as a professional, and that's England. But according to the rules laid down by the International Cricket Council, transgender participation in female sport trans women participating in international cricket matches have been banned, and that ban came about in November 2023. There are various nuances that we're going to discuss thanks to the social media vitriol that Anaya Bangar has copped through posting about or expressing herself and her identity as a trans woman on social media. And subsequently, her father is also going through the emotional roller coaster ride and the taunts and jeers that you would expect of this age where social media takes precedence more than anything else, which is why we have three individuals who have far more authority of shedding light on the subject than I do. So for the remainder of the 40-odd minutes that I've been allotted for this session, I will try to give most of the microseconds to these three individuals. And who are they? First up, to my left is Gopi Shankar Madurai. Gopi is a multifaceted human being. They have worked a lot behind the scenes. Gopi is a gender activist and the first intersex statutory authority with the Indian government and the co-founder of Asia's first intersex organization, which is currently based in Taiwan. And he works they work day in and out. I'm going to make this mistake, and it's a mistake where I'm going to perhaps mix up the pronouns, but it's important to admit those mistakes and get them right, because I'm not perfect either. And I'm learning, which is what I think the session is also trying to aim for, to engage in a conversation. And Gopi uses the pronoun they, and they have been incessantly and painstakingly at work trying to ensure that the rights of infants and children with intersex characteristics in India are safeguarded. Joining Gopi Shankar Madurai in this session is Pinky Pramanik. Pinky has literally run from the Delhi airport to the IHC. She is coming from Kolkata. Pinky is one of India's best former middle distance runners. She won gold at the Asian Games 2006 and followed it up with a silver at the Commonwealth Games and is currently working with the Eastern Railways in Shialda. Her life is a story too, and how the conflation of sex and gender and the lack of awareness, hers is a classic case of how it can all go awry if the state, the media, the society doesn't care to educate themselves on this subject. And to my farthest left is somebody who was, I think, described as the Caster Semenya of India. Somebody whispered it in the audience when she was getting up on the dais. Raise your hand. You're right. And she's way bigger than that. Duti Chand, a two-time Olympian, a trailblazer in Indian sport, in global sport, multiple Asian Games medalist, the fastest Indian woman sprinter in 100 meters, and with special emphasis, I've got to mention, the first openly gay athlete of India. It takes courage for all of them to be doing what they have done, and for all of them to be carrying all the identities that I spoke of, the affiliations. And without further ado, let's start off with something that's very basic. Hand on heart. I'm going to ask the audience to participate in this little exercise. Hand on heart, without Google, without AI, without Sam Altman, can you be honest and tell yourself you have crystal clear idea in terms of the difference between sex and gender? Can you raise your hand if that's a yes? Like, can you say with certainty, I know what the difference between sex and gender is? If you do, raise your hand. I know what the difference is, so I can confidently say. Did you find another hand, Gopi? Right there. Excellent. Cool. So roughly 80-odd people in the room, and two. Well, I sort of educated myself in the past 1.5 weeks. Thanks to Sandeep inviting me to moderate this session. Otherwise, I was no authority or not even 50% educated on this subject. Gopi, why don't you tell us, where does India or the world stand when it comes to the perception between sex and gender? Because most people do not seem to know what that is.
Am I audible? Yeah. Namaste. Good afternoon and vanakkam. Actually, we don't talk much about sex identity in our country, but we do a lot of sex, but then and we gave Kama Sutra and everything to the world, but then, and suddenly all the colonial notions here came up with everything, I think some children or, no.
Parental discretion advised, is
Yeah.
that what you're looking for?
Yeah. So even, the missionary position as male or female or partners penetrating them face to face is known as missionary position because missionaries approved it. And colonial British approved that particular position. And they said that anybody is not going to have, sex face to face should be punished under this particular law called Unnatural Sexual Offences Law, 377, which is stupidity. No other country, under British, at least 63 countries were there. It is not just British. Portuguese ruled us. Dutch ruled us. Who didn't rule us? Everyone. So coming back to this particular topic, you must have watched Paris Olympics. You must have noticed Imane Khalif coming from a North African country, coming from a Muslim, background. Most of her country women wearing hijab and all those things. She coming to that, stage as a boxer, it takes immense of courage and determination. It's not an easy joke. And Imane Khalif is assigned as female at birth. She was raised as female. There are a lot of female with XY chromosome. Even it is noticed that these female from Haryana and Rajasthan and many other states in India gave birth to, children or babies. These women are with XY chromosomes. So what makes a woman? Chromosome. Woman is different from female. First, I need to get into it. Because all species in the world have sex identity. Only human beings have gender identity. Because animals don't tend to, pink is for that girl and blue is for this boy. Or all the elephants are, led by a female herd. So they don't question why we should be led by a female herd. The bees don't question why we should follow the queen bee, the Rani bee. Let we follow the Raja. There is no Raja bee, So, the question is that sex is common to everyone. The Constitution of India do recognize. Babasaheb Ambedkar mentioned the word sex in two senses. One is as a sex identity and another as a sex activity, as an activity. When it comes to gender, it's completely new term. It only evolved after 1950s. It got popularized, and in 1985 we started using it in the public policy and governance. Because sex identity, we cannot determine our sex identity. How many of you decided to be assigned or established as male or female at birth? Like that, I didn't decide to be assigned as or established as intersex at birth. Like when an infant is born, when infant is identified with the male-like reproductive system, we call it male. When an infant is identified with female-like reproductive system, that is with vaginal opening and the ovary and all those things, then we call it female. When the infant is not with the both male and female, characteristics, when you cannot fit them in the binary sex identity, then they are intersex. There are at least 40 intersex variation, 14 different chromosomal patterns are there. So when it comes to persons like Imane Khalif or Castor Samanya or Shanti Soundarajan or many female athletes with us now, they all are female athletes, but they tend to produce somewhat excessive testosterone, or they may have attained puberty a bit late in their life. There are a lot of other issues also. Some may tend to have facial hair. It doesn't make them lesser than any other female, right? So in sports, only female athletes need to undergo sex verification test in a very pathetic way. All it started in Hitler's era, in Nazi Germany, and then it continues even now. So very recently we have Tudi Chand challenging such sex verification test policies in Court of Arbitration for Sports, for which the Modi government supported her to fight the case in Court of Arbitration for Sports. And also we have the case of Shanti and Pinky, who are very courageous female athletes who gave their everything for India, but this country gave them nothing. So I just want to stop it here, but before stopping it, I just want to make a clear differentiation between sex and gender identity. Sex identity, as I said, that's your birth identity. You don't decide it, right? So gender identity is something you consciously decide it. Animals don't have gender identity. For example, autistic children don't have gender identity. They have sex identity. Autistic children can be either a male child or a female child or an intersex child. They cannot go on recognizing or identifying themselves as a transgender person, or the term transgender is new. Yes, we do have indigenous terminologies like hijras, jogapas, kinners, and all those things. These hijras, transgenders, are not intersex people. Transgender persons are biologically established as male or female at birth. And here we have a different category of people who are female athletes with intersex traits. There are also male athletes with intersex traits. There are also intersex athletes. But some of the intersex athletes can reproduce. They can produce offsprings. So there are a lot of physiological differences and things. And now, the world sporting body is working on special policies, and we are also assisting for the first time, at least more than, 70 plus countries, including India and Pakistan together, voted for protecting the rights of intersex persons in the present United Nations General Assembly, which is a very landmark step, because it took us around 17 years of work to make them to recognize it, because even now intersex persons are not part of the census of our country.
And the last census, FII, took place.
Yeah.
Who can answer when? 2011. 13 years and counting. And in these 13 years, a lot has happened, right, Gopi, as you said, and there's so much to unpack from what you mentioned. And thanks for that very erudite and considered explanation of the difference between sex and gender. So, transgender and cisgender. So who are cisgender individuals? Cisgender is a term that is used for individuals whose gender identity corresponds with their sex identity, the sex identity they were assigned at birth. Whereas transgender individuals do not. A transgender woman, in Anaya Bangar's case, she was born a male biologically, but she decided that her internal expression of gender is more aligned with a woman. Hence, she decided to undergo hormonal therapy, which she's still undergoing, and she's regularly posting about it on social media, and that's her personal choice, right? And that is the difference between transgenders and cisgenders. Keeping in mind the psychological nuances of the terms gender and sex, the political aspects of it, the scientific aspects of it. Gopi spoke of policies. It's a buzzword when this topic comes up at any time of the day. But often what we forget is the human aspect of it, and how it often gets lost in the gray area that comes in the overlap of male, female, and the binaries, the idea of binaries. And it does happen ever so often that female athletes, as Gopi mentioned, are at the receiving end of unimaginable social vitriol, taunts and jeers, ostracization, so much so that the world forgets that they are a human being at the end of the day. I would want to take this opportunity to, before I go to Dhruti, to ask Pinky Pramanik, who in 2006 won 4 gold medals internationally, if I'm not mistaken. And then came 2012, when all of a sudden she found herself living through hell in the body of a human being, because, and with Pinky's permission, I am sort of doing a recollection of that. Her live-in partner at the time in Bengal decided to level a set of allegations of Pinky raping that live-in partner in question, who happens to be a woman, and then started a media trial, a state trial like no other, and it ostracized and eventually shunted Pinky out of the love of her life, which was the track and the field. Just to give you a brief sense of what really happened, in a nutshell, Pinky was kept in a male ward of a prison in Kolkata. She was herded from prison to court, court to prison, innumerable times in the company of only, and I mentioned that again, only male police persons. And there were a number of random, completely arbitrary, absolutely inconclusive to this day, sex determination tests that were conducted on Pinky, and none of them found conclusively that, hey, the allegations leveled at her by her partner were true. They were not true. The case has been shut by the Kolkata High Court because, as I mentioned, the rape allegations were completely unfounded. One of the most inhuman things that can happen to a human being is when she was going through a sex determination test in police custody, somebody decided to film that test and made an MMS. Remember the word MMS? It went viral, and there you have it. Somebody who was billed to be the next PT Usha of India started falling off the radar. पिंकी, एक सवाल आपसे मैं पूछना चाहूँगी, ये जो आई नो कि आपके लिए डिस्कस करना 2012 से जो आपकी ज़िंदगी में हुआ है, इजी नहीं है, और मैं आपके आंखों में थोड़ा सा कुछ नमियाँ देख रही हूँ, और ये बहुत ही करेजियस एक डिसीजन है आपका कि आपने मुझे परमिशन दिया, एक कमरा स्पोर्ट्स लिट फेस्ट को, संदीप मिश्रा को, उनके सब साथियों और कॉलीग्स को ये परमिशन दिया कि हम लोग आपकी कहानी इन ऑडियंस को बता सके, क्योंकि इनमें से बहुत सारे मिलेनियल्स है, जेनजी है, अल्फा है, स्ट्रीम हो रहा है, वो शायद पिंकी प्रमाणिक के बारे में नहीं जानते हैं. एंड शी इज़ वन ऑफ द मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट एंड अ क्लासिक केस ऑफ हाउ state and media trial can kill the weak and the different in India. पहले तो ये मैं पूछना चाहूँगी एक सिंपल सा सवाल. एक पिक्चर मुझे याद है, BBC के एक आर्टिकल में निकला था. The BBC had put out an article with the lead image of two police persons, male police persons, groping Pinky in a police van. Has any of these police persons, क्या इनमें से कोई पुलिस वाले या फिर मीडिया वालों ने जो आपके अगेंस्ट काफ़ी ताने, अनाप शवाब, अपशब्द जो इस्तेमाल किए, आपका एक गलत इमेज उन्होंने क्रिएट किया, किसी ने आपको अपोलोजाइज किया, किसी ने माफ़ी मांगा आपसे? Is she audible? थोड़ा ऊंचा बोलेंगे?
माफी तो बहुत दूर की बात है. किसी ने आफ्टर डेट मुझे आके पास में मतलब बात भी नहीं किया ताकि मुझे तसल्ली मिले दिल को. माफी तो बहुत दूर की बात है क्योंकि ये जो घटना घटा उसके लेके मैं बहुत ही डिस्टर्ब हो गई थी उस टाइम. बट वो बात को लेके कोई आज तक मुझे आके थोड़ा देर बैठ के भी मुझसे बात नहीं किया था कि मेरा थोड़ा दिल का बोझ हल्का हो.
Quickly translate, she says, forget about making an apology. Barely no one has come to me and sat next to me to share a word of encouragement or two, because since that incident, my life took a U-turn and it just veered off the track in a way that I had not imagined. And I remember I come from the same part of Kolkata that she does, and I used to watch a lot of evening sports bulletins. And Well, the media also owes an apology to the consumers of those news, including me. I never got one, but now that I work in sports media as a journalist, let me try and ask for an apology that the fraternity I am part of messed up that bad. मैं आपसे माफ़ी मांगती हूँ क्योंकि मैं भी अभी स्पोर्ट्स जर्नलिज्म डॉक्यूमेंट्री प्रोडक्शन में हूँ. थोड़ा बताएंगे कि क्या हुआ 2012 से जब तक कैलकाटा हाई कोर्ट ने आपका केस क्वॉश नहीं किया, किस तरीके का समाज से आपको ताने वगैरह सुनने पड़े, साइकोलॉजिकली इमोशनली आपको क्या महसूस हो रहा था और आपका करियर क्या हो सकता था आपको लगता है, और कहाँ पे अटक गया और ख़त्म भी हो गया?
एक्चुअली 2012 से पहले के बाद मैं बताना चाहूँगी. 10 साल में 2010 में मैं openness में इंटर स्टेट पार्टिसिपेट करने गई थी मथुराई. तो वहाँ पे मैंने हिट्स दौड़ा, हिट्स में मैंने फर्स्ट आया. टाइम भी बहुत अच्छा था, 11.07 जो अभी इंडियन रिकॉर्ड है उससे भी अच्छा टाइम मैंने निकाला था हिट्स में. बाद में मुझे जब फाइनल का टाइम हुआ तो जो हम लोग का सेक्रेटरी था एथलेटिक्स फेडरेशन का, उन्होंने बोला तुम नहीं दौड़ सकती हो. तो उस टाइम एक स्पोर्ट्स पर्सन हो या कोई किसी का जो चीज़ करता होगा और उसको डायरेक्टली कोई अगर उस टाइम रोक दे या मना कर दे तो क्या बीतता है, एक मात्र सिर्फ हो ही जानता है. उसके बाद तो मैं वहाँ से फिर निकल गई, मुझे मना कर दिया. तो ना मैं किसी से रो पाई ना किसी को बोल पाई. मुझे बोला सेक्रेटरी ने खुद ही बोला कि तुम चले जाओ नहीं तो तुमको तुम्हारा लाइफ पूरा डैमेज कर देंगे. तो मैं ग्राउंड में हूँ, मैं जूता खोल के हिट्स में रनिंग किया. जब फाइनल में दौड़ूंगी तो मैं जूता ऐसे चेंज कर रही थी स्पेक्स रनिंग दौड़ने के लिए. और उस टाइम मुझे आके बोला गया कि तुम नहीं दौड़ सकती हो. आप लोग सोचते कि नहीं थिंग्स क्या बीता होगा उस टाइम मेरा ऊपर. चलो कोई बात नहीं, बोला तो हो गया. उसके बाद में मैंने 2010 से लेकर 2012 तक मैंने ड्यूटी किया ऑफिस में, क्योंकि उस टाइम मेरा उम्र था जस्ट 19 ईयर ओल्ड थी मैं उस टाइम. क्योंकि मैं उतना कुछ किसी से बता भी नहीं सकती थी, क्योंकि मैं उतना कुछ जानती भी नहीं थी. तो मैं किसी के साथ इस बात बारे में डिस्कस भी नहीं किया. डिस्कस नहीं मतलब मैं क्या बोलूँ क्या नहीं, मैं खुद ही समझ में मुझे नहीं आ रहा था. तो मैं बिल्कुल चुप हो गई थी. और चुप होने के बाद में मैं फिर क्योंकि डिस्पोज नहीं कर पाऊंगी तो वो तो मेरा सपना था हमेशा का. फिर मैंने ज्वाइन किया डिप्टी ज्वाइन करने के बाद में मैंने काम किया 2010 से लेकर 2012 तक. उसके बाद में 2012 में एक्चुअली वो मेरा पार्टनर नहीं थी. मैं मीडिया में यही बात को सभी लोग बोलता था कि मेरा पार्टनर, बट शी इज नॉट माई पार्टनर. मेरा जो होम है, होम के बगल में वो रेंट में रहती थी विद हर हस्बैंड एंड हर बेबी. तो मेरा उसका हस्बैंड ने उनको डिवोर्स देके फिर चला गया था कहीं पे. फिर मैंने उनको रेंट देने के लिए भाड़ा उड़ा नहीं था, तो मैंने उनको बोला कि ठीक है मेरा घर में आ जाओ, रह जाओ, और जब तक तुमको रेंट नहीं मिलता दूसरी जगह में तो तुम मेरा घर में रह सकती हो. ऐसा करते 2012 में 2-4 महीना रही. उसके बाद में जब मैंने बोला बहुत दिन हो गया, उसके घर से सामान भी बहुत चोरी हो रहा था, तो मैंने बोला देखो काम करो, तुम बाहर में एक तो मकान देख लो या रेंट में देख लो, मैं भी देख देती हूँ. जब मैंने उनको ऐसा बोला तो बोला नहीं, अगर ऐसा है तो तुम तुम्हारा घर मेरा नाम में लिख दो, और नहीं तो मैं तुम्हारा नाम में एक एलिगेशन दूंगी. उसके बाद में इतना सारा एलिगेशन मेरा नाम में उसने दे दिया. फिर उस टाइम तो मेरे 2010 से लेकर 2012 तक मेरा कोई बेड्स कमेंट मुझे नहीं किया था किसी ने, मेरा जो बड़ा पड़ोसन है कोई भी नहीं किया था. लेकिन 2012 जब हुआ घटना मेरा संग में, तो उसके बाद में रास्ते में निकलने के लिए भी मुझे सोचना पड़ता था, कहीं कोई इंसान कुछ ना बोल दे. बहुत सारी जगह बहुत कुछ कमेंट्स भी सुनने के लिए मिलता था, बट मैं उतना उसमें वेट नहीं करती थी, क्योंकि इससे भी बड़ा तकलीफ मुझे लग चुका था एक बार जब मेरे स्पोर्ट्स से मैंने दूर हुआ. मैं बार बार वही मेरा मन में आता था, मैं क्या बोलूँ उसके लिए, मेरा कुछ लफ्ज़ ही नहीं है मेरे पास बोलने के लिए.
और ये जो घटनाएं घटी आपके साथ, एक बड़ा कारण जो इसका रहा है, जैसे कि हम बात कर रहे थे कि सेक्स और जेंडर के बारे में कितने लोगों को आइडिया है. सब आपको बोलने लगे ये मर्द है, ये ट्रांसजेंडर है. और हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं कि ट्रांसजेंडर एथलीट्स का विमेन स्पोर्ट्स में कोई जगह होनी चाहिए कि नहीं। दूती, अगर मैं आपको इस विषय में लाऊं इधर, आपने देखा है, आपको कैस्ट सेमेनिया ऑफ इंडिया बोला गया है ऑडियंस से, एंड आपने कैस तक जाके एथलेटिक फेडरेशन ऑफ इंडिया, AIFF, सभी इम्पॉर्टेंट पॉलिसी मेकर्स के साथ और उनको चैलेंज करके ये जो परसेप्शन है, ये जो कन्फ्यूजन क्रिएट होता है, आपने वो चेंज करने की कोशिश की है। आप अपने ज़िंदगी के कुछ घटनाओं को समराइज करके बता सकते हैं कि एक फीमेल एथलीट को अगर वो एक तरीके से बात करती है, चलती है, कुछ ज़्यादा तेज दौड़ने लगती है, उनको ट्रांसजेंडर कैटेगराइज करने का एक पेंशन होता है, एक टेंडेंसी होता है। आपने कैसे नेविगेट किया और अब तक कैसे नेविगेट करते हो, और उसके ऊपर आपने डिसाइड किया कि मैं ओपनली बोलूँगी, मेरी सेक्सुअलिटी के बारे में मैं बात करूँगी। एंड आप एक बहुत ही कंजर्वेटिव फैमिली से आते हो, तो ये सब कैसे आपने इन सब चैलेंजेस को आपने नेविगेट किया?
बेसिकली 2014 में ग्लासगो कॉमनवेल्थ गेम जाने से पहले 3 दिन से पहले मुझे बोला गया कि आप टीम में नहीं जा सकते हो, आपका तबीयत बहुत ख़राब है, आप खेल नहीं सकते हो। उस टाइम में मैं पूरा फिट थी, मुझे कोई कमजोरी फेस महसूस नहीं हो रहा था। तो सबका एयर टिकट आ गया था और मुझे बोला गया कि आप नहीं जा सकते हो। मैं जब इनको पूछा कि मैं क्यों नहीं जा सकती हूँ खेलने के लिए, कि इससे पहले मैं ये एशियन चैम्पियनशिप खेला था ताइपे में, इसमें 2 गोल्ड मेडल मार के आया था मैंने। और 2013 में पुणे में हुआ था एशियन एथलेटिक चैम्पियनशिप, इसमें भी ब्रोंज मेडल लिया था मैंने। और उसी 2013 में टर्की में हुआ था वर्ल्ड चैम्पियनशिप, उसमें भी हिस्सा लेकर आया था, 4th पोजीशन लेकर आया था मैंने। इससे पहले कुछ भी नहीं हुआ था, लेकिन जब कॉमनवेल्थ गेम के लिए सिलेक्ट हुआ उस टाइम में ऐसे ही बोल के बोले कि आप टीम के लिए नहीं जा सकते हो। लेकिन जब मैंने क्वेश्चन किया कि मुझे टीम में क्यों नहीं ले, क्या तबीयत खराब, मुझे मेडिकल डॉक्यूमेंट दे दो, तो उन्होंने कुछ दिया नहीं। फोर्टिल हॉस्पिटल में मेरा सारा मेडिकल चेकअप हुआ था। वो मेरे जो डॉक्टर मैडम थे, कमलेश मैडम, तो उनको जब मैं मांगा कि मेरा क्या टेस्टिंग हुआ था, मुझे रिपोर्ट दे दो, तो उसी हिसाब से मैं तबीयत ठीक करूँगी। तो उन्होंने बताया कि हमारे पास जो डॉक्यूमेंट है आपको नहीं दे सकते, वो पोस्ट अथॉरिटी ऑफ इंडिया वालों ने आपको डायरेक्ट देंगे, आप अभी हो सका तो घर चला जाओ। मैं बोला कि मेरा तबीयत भी ठीक है और कुछ आप रिपोर्ट भी नहीं दे रहे और बोल रहे कि घर चला जाओ, कैसे जाऊँगी मैं। तो उस टाइम में उस दिन इतना बात हुआ। नेक्स्ट डे को देखा कि सारा पेपर में ब्रेकिंग न्यूज आया कि द्युति का जेंडर टेस्ट हुआ था, वो लड़की नहीं है, वो लड़का है, इसलिए वुमेन कैटेगरी में नहीं खेल सकते और इसी में टीम में नहीं ले रहे, इंडिया टीम में। तो इसको देख के मैं पूरा हैरान हो गया, क्योंकि मैं बच्चा ही था उस टाइम में, 18 प्लस नहीं थी, 16 प्लस या 17 साल थी उस टाइम में। मुझे खुद को पता नहीं चला था कि एक्चुअली मैं क्या हूँ और क्यों मुझे ऐसा इतना ताना मार रहे, इतना ब्रेकिंग डाल रहे। सब मेरे को देख के ताना मारना शुरू कर दिया, मेरा जेंडर को क्वेश्चन करना शुरू कर दिया। तो बाद में 10-15 दिन के बाद मेरा जो एडवाइज़र थे फिर उस टाइम में पायसनी मैडम, कोलकाता की है, तो उन्होंने आके मुझे समझाया कि रूल के बारे में, कि स्पोर्ट्स में क्या क्या रूल होता है, क्या क्या टेस्टिंग होता है। तो मेरे उससे पहले मुझे सिर्फ इतना ही पता था इससे डोप टेस्ट होता है, लेकिन उसी में जेंडर टेस्ट भी होता है, हाइपोजन टेस्ट भी होता है और डोपिंग टेस्ट भी होता है। तो ये सारा टेस्ट मुझे उस टाइम में पता चला जब उन्होंने बताया। तो उस टाइम में रेगुलेशन वही था कि कोई भी महिला के अंदर में पुरुष हार्मोन मात्रा ज़्यादा रहेगा तो खेल नहीं सकता, क्योंकि इसको ज़्यादा एडवांटेज मिलता है, ताकत ज़्यादा मिलता है इनको। तो एक तरफ वो IOC बोल रहा था कि बाहर से कोई मेडिसिन आप इंजेक्ट करके शक्ति को नहीं बढ़ा सकते हो, लेकिन जो हार्मोन प्रोड्यूस हो रहा था वो मेरा नेचुरल था। तो उस टाइम में जब मैंने जाके बात किया तो सबने वही बोला कि आपका जो भी हो, लेकिन आप टीम में नहीं खेल सकते हो, आप स्पोर्ट्स में नहीं खेल सकते हो। उस टाइम में फेडरेशन, एथलेटिक्स फेडरेशन ऑफ इंडिया के जो सेक्रेटरी CK भालचंद सर ने, उन्होंने मुझे बैन का लेटर पकड़ा दिया कि द्युति तुम नहीं खेल सकते हो, दोबारा ट्रैक को मत आओ। लेकिन ये IOC के रूल के हिसाब से कोई भी फेडरेशन किसी को बैन नहीं कर सकते, जो उन्होंने मुझे बैन कर दिया था। तो इसी को लेके मैंने चैलेंज करने के लिए कोशिश किया, क्योंकि पहली बार भारतीय में पूरी वर्ल्ड में मैं एक ही लड़की हूँ जो रूल के अगेंस्ट में, मैंने IOC के अगेंस्ट में केस लड़ाई किया था स्विट्जरलैंड में, कोड ऑफ आर्बिट्रेशन में। तो उसी में मैंने जाके फाइट किया और मैंने उनको वही सवाल उठाया कि इंसान जो पैदा होता है सिर्फ बॉडी लेके आता है, इसमें बॉडी में क्या ग्रोथ होगा क्या नहीं होगा, वो धीरे धीरे जब इंसान बढ़ता है तो इसके धीरे धीरे ग्रोथ होता है। तो उसी हिसाब से मेरा हार्मोन लेवल कितना बढ़ा है वो अभी तक मुझे पता नहीं, इसका अक्सर क्या पड़ता है अभी तक मैंने कभी फील भी नहीं किया है। जो एथलीट बिना मेहनत में कोई भी मेडल नहीं जीत सकता है, मैं इतना मेहनत किया इसलिए मैं मेडल ले रहा हूँ। काल के मैं 1 साल पोस्ट मतलब ट्रेनिंग छोड़ दूँगी तो नेक्स्ट टाइम आप बोलेंगे तो 11.2 में भागो, मैं नहीं भाग सकती हूँ, क्योंकि हर चीज़ के लिए मेहनत चाहिए और मैंने मेहनत करके इतना सफलता अर्जन किया है। लेकिन ये कि वार्ड से मुझे उन्होंने सारा बैन कर रहे और पूरी दुनिया में बदनामी हो रहा हूँ। तो मुझे दोबारा खेलने के लिए मुझे मौका दिया जाए और मेरे साथ जो अन्याय है वो इसका मुझे न्याय दिया जाए। तो फिर वो लॉज मैडम ने इसको कोर्ट में केस दायर किया था। मेरा एक टीम बनाया था मैंने, और कनाडा के कनाडा की कोर्ट के जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट के थे जज कार्लोस और जिम बंटिंग और पैसनी मैडम, साइंटिस्ट टीम, सबको लेके मैंने केस अप्लाई किया था। उसमें वही मेंशन किया कि जो भी हार्मोन प्रोड्यूस हो रहा है वो नेचुरल था। मेरा उस टाइम में आईओसी बोल रहा था कि 2.50 होना चाहिए बॉडी में, लेकिन उस टाइम में मेरा 3.01 हुआ था, 10 शायद 6-7 मिलीग्राम बढ़ा था। तो इसी को लेके मुझे बैन करा गया था। लेकिन एक सबसे बड़ा दिक्कत था उस टाइम में दुनिया को फेस करना, क्योंकि जो पड़ोसी लोग थे, जो फ्रेंड सर्कल, जो ऑफिशियल टीम, सब मुझे दूसरी नज़र से देख रहे थे। मैं बाहर निकल नहीं पा रही थी उस टाइम में, काफ़ी कष्ट हो रहा था, काफ़ी संघर्ष भी कर रही थी उस टाइम में। खुद को ऐसा महसूस हो रहा था कि मैं जी के कोई फ़ायदा नहीं है, क्योंकि रास्ता में जाते तो सारी ताना माना शुरू कर दिया था। मेरा जितना सहेली थे वो भी छूट के, किसी घर को जाते तो वो मना करते थे कि हमारे घर मत आओ। तो इतना कंट्रोवर्सी हुआ था उस टाइम में, मैं किसी को फेस देखने के लिए लायक नहीं थी। तो काफ़ी संघर्ष किया उस टाइम में, लेकिन मेरा को सम्मान लौटा दिया कोर्ट ऑफ आर्बिट्रेशन बोर्ड्स ने। सिर्फ मेरे को नहीं, मैं केस जीतने के बाद मैं तो खेलने को मौका मिला मुझे। मेरे साथ कास्टर सोमेना को, पिंकी दीदी को, काफ़ी ऐसे एथलीट है जो ऑस्ट्रेलिया के भी एक एथलीट है, सबको खेलने को मौका मिला। वो मेरे लिए सबसे बड़ा संघर्षपूर्ण चैलेंजफुल था वो इस केस को जीतने का।
और यस प्लीज। And from that period of time, from 2012, 2014, when your eligibility as a woman competing in a cisgender women's events was being questioned, to today, when the IOC has reworked its framework of policies, and that happened in November 2021. So barely 4-5 months after the Tokyo 2021 Olympics, where Laurel Hubbard became the first transgender athlete to compete in the Olympic Games. Although transgender athletes were allowed to compete in the Olympic Games since 2004, but this was the first time that a transgender athlete did eventually take part. And Laurel Hubbard happens to be a weightlifter from New Zealand. And after that, the IOC came up with a revised framework, and eventually, though, it left the onus on the federations, on the global governing bodies of sport to draw up their own framework, which, mind you, as recently as November 2024, has been lambasted in no unambiguous terms by Lord Sebastian Coe, who is the president of World Athletics and is going to be likely the successor of Thomas Bach, because he is one of the 7 people in the running to assume office as the next IOC president. And according to Sir Seb Coe, there should not be any nebulous area between whether transgender athletes should be allowed to participate, transgender women should be allowed to participate in women's categories, because he feels it's a complete no. It's an outright disservice to women athletes and doesn't safeguard their interests or the integrity of sport itself. So 2014 से ये जो 10 साल का एक जर्नी रहा है विमेन स्पोर्ट्स का, जहाँ पे और भी अवेयरनेस बढ़ा है ट्रांसजेंडर एथलीट्स को। जब ईमान खलीफ के बारे में जब उन्होंने पेरिस में मेडल जीता, दूती आपने बोला कि नहीं होना चाहिए उन पे ये जो सवाल उठ रहे हैं, उनकी सेक्सुअलिटी, उनके आइडेंटिटी पे, सेक्सुअल आइडेंटिटी पे ये नहीं उठना चाहिए। आप इस विषय में कहा हो कि ट्रांसजेंडर विमेन को विमेन स्पोर्ट में एक साथ compete करने का छूट देना चाहिए या फिर उनके लिए अलग कैटेगरी होना चाहिए?
मेरे केस के टाइम में जो रूल था तो बेसिकली था उस टाइम में कोई भी महिला है, इनका अंदर में कोई भी हार्मोन प्रोड्यूस हो रहा है वो नेचुरल होना चाहिए। जेंडर चेंज करने से नहीं कि काफ़ी हार्मोन थेरेपी करना पड़ता है, काफ़ी मेडिसिन वगैरह लेना पड़ता है। तो रूल में ऐसा मेंशन है कि कोई भी बाहर से आप इंजेक्ट मेडिसिन नहीं कर सकते, तो आप करेंगे इसको डोप केस में आपको बैन करा सकते। तो इसी रूल के हिसाब से ट्रांसजेंडर एथलीट को खेलने के लिए मना है, जो रूल के हिसाब से। लेकिन मेरे हिसाब से तो देखेंगे तो महिला के कैटेगरी में महिला खेलेंगे ठीक है, लेकिन जो जेंडर चेंज करे वो तो महिला होके ही आ रहा है। ये नहीं कि वो जेंडर चेंज किया मतलब लड़का होके फिर लड़की के साथ खेल रहा है, वो ऑटोमेटिक वो मेडिकल चेंज जेंडर चेंज करके महिला के साथ खेल रहे हैं। इसमें कोई गुनाह भी नहीं है, इसको खिलाना भी चाहिए। और जो लेवल का चेकअप कर रहे हैं हार्मोन लेवल का, तो इसी आप चेक करके महिला कैटेगरी में खेल सकते, जो रूल रखा है कि 2.5 से ज़्यादा होना नहीं होना चाहिए, इससे कम होने से आप खेल सकते हो, तो उसी हिसाब से भी खेला सकते, इसमें कोई दिक्कत नहीं।
देखिए, आपके क्या विचार है इस बारे में? जैसे दूती ने बोला, आप उनसे उनका राय आपका राय सेम है, या फिर आपको लगता है कि दो अलग कैटेगरीज बनने चाहिए ताकि इंटेग्रिटी ऑफ विमेन स्पोर्ट, जो सभी गवर्निंग बॉडीज, वर्ल्ड एथलेटिक्स हो, अभी वर्ल्ड एक्वेटिक्स, इंटरनेशनल क्रिकेट काउंसिल, सभी बोले कि एनी प्लेयर दैट इज गॉन थ्रू मेल प्यूबर्टी after transition should not be allowed to compete in women's sport if they happen to identify as trans women. आपको क्या लगता है इस बारे में?
एक्चुअली जो इंटरसेक्स पर्सन है वो तो गॉड गिफ्टेड है, सो उन लोगों के लिए तो ये रूल्स लागू होता ही नहीं। ड्यूटी भी बताया है और जगह से भी सुनने मिलता है। लेकिन जो सेक्स चेंज करता हो बाय ऑपरेशन सर्जरी करके, तो वो अगर मेल होके फीमेल होना चाहता है और बाद में अगर पार्टिसिपेट करना चाहता है कोई इवेंट पे, तो मेरा ख्याल से ना उनको पार्टिसिपेट करना देना चाहिए। और रही रूल्स की बात, तो वो तो जो पार्टिसिपेट करेगी जो इवेंट में, वो उनका जो ये है आपका कम्युनिटी है जो वो ठीक करेगा कि उनको किस में पार्टिसिपेट करना चाहिए या नहीं करना चाहिए। लेकिन मेरा पर्सनली जो राय है, इंटरसेक्स जो पर्सन है उनको तो गॉड गिफ्टेड है, और जो अगर कोई लड़का सर्जरी करके अगर कोई लड़की होती है तो मेरा ख्याल से उनको पार्टिसिपेट नहीं करने देना चाहिए कोई भी इवेंट में।
Gopi, briefly, if you could shed your thoughts on what is a very complex and layered question.
The issue is that they are talking about genetic advantage, and like who makes all these rules and decision is a group of men who don't know any difference about sex and gender. And all these people who make these rules are not medical geneticists though, basically, and they're not scientists, medical scientists. So basically these unscientific rules and claims, whatever they make in sports, it is making sports as a very unsafe space, non-inclusive space. And what we need to focus here is that Imane Khalif is a female, and she's a female athlete, and World Boxing Federation is full of conservative people, and they don't know the science. More than conservative people, they don't know how to understand the science. She was established as female at birth, raised as female, and then she won the medal. And that's it. The IOC is not going to get that back. They awarded it, and they're going to continue with that. See, the people from power tend to share wrong information. See, amount of wrong information was spreading on social media, on X, from Elon Musk to former British Prime Minister to everyone was sharing that, oh, this is a man, this is a female athlete. That's what happened to Shanti. That's what happened to Tudi. You know, when the AFI said Tudi is not a female, Shanti questioned it. You people, you have a daughter in your house. Will you come out and say that your daughter is not female enough? So these are our India's daughter. And wherever they are, such people are, they need to be protected. And we need to understand that allowing transgender persons in female category is problematic. And because these are the female athletes who are established as female at birth, and they can participate in female sports, and you know, they are quite stronger than many athletes. When it comes to genetic advantage, you are not kind of asking, you know, Michael Phelps to cut off his, body in certain shape. You are not asking. So in a report, there were around more than 300 elite athletes with genetic advantage, both male and female. These female athletes have genetic advantage over their own female athletes. And these male athletes have genetic advantage over their own male athletes. Are we asking them to kind of, you cut off your limbs, you reduce this, this hormone in your body? Are we saying that to them? No. Then why are we saying that to some athletes with intersex traits? There are few athletes. So, I mean, such athletes, including, I'm an intersex person, so I chose to live like this, and this is biology. And there are plenty of female with XY chromosome who give birth to, who have produced offspring. Producing offsprings is not a necessary thing for a female, but still, I'm just saying because science is vast and expansive and complex, and we need to make sports inclusive. Because when you see the way Olympics started, it was started with men, naked men playing with each other. And then slowly, after several after I think 1 millennium, they allowed some small group of women. And then now where we are we heading towards a very inclusive space? No. In India, caste, class, everything plays a barrier in it. Where you come from, because Shanti cannot speak, Shanti Soundarajan, who was stripped of a medal, she won 11 international medals for India. With one pair of borrowed shoes, she won 11 international medals for India. And she don't know to speak in English. She can't speak Hindi, the predominant language of India. And nobody understood her. 11 male doctors, did this gender test on her in Doha. Nobody questioned her. Nobody questioned it. The mistake she did is she said, oh, I will run for India. I'll run for India. Then what happened? India let her like that. India, kind of lost her daughter. Shanti Soundarajan is from the same batch of Radyavardhan Singh Rathore and senior to Sania Mirza, and all these people participated in the Asian Games in the same contingent. And where is Shanti in 2011? She was working in a bricklin as a daily wage. And this is the actual condition of athletes in sports. And will it change? It is not just about the question of sex alone in India. It is a wider intersectional angle we need to put. And when it comes to the question of Bangar, I think Anaya Bangar should have a separate category. And she should compete in that category. And we respect transgender athletes. We need more transgender athletes to participate in sports, but not under female category. As we respect the transgender person's integrity, we also respect the female's integrity as what they are and who they are, because we don't understand the difference between sex and gender. Our courts don't understand the difference between sex and gender. Our doctors don't understand the difference between sex and gender. People like Pinky, Tudy, Shanti, Caster, everybody suffers so much.
From sport beginning with naked men partaking in athletic pursuits to women being stripped of their dignity, sport has indeed come a long way. We will wrap this session, but maybe just a couple of questions in case there are any hands, any curious minds, or for our guests, just one question before we close the session. Sure. Just one question for any of our guests.
Hi, I'm Swami. I actually don't want to ask any questions. I just want to share something. I mean, it's an absolutely awesomely brave topic to discuss in an open forum like this. I must tell you, this is not the first time this has happened in India. Gopi took a few names. I know a few names which I'm not going to take them here in Indian athletics context. It happened in the 80s in India. Rupinder Singh would know that because he was my guru. It happened after that also. When we talk about Y chromosomes and X chromosomes, there are a lot of it which are produced naturally. When a woman goes through childbirth, when she's giving birth to a child, she produces hormones which are closer to testosterone than otherwise. Marathon runners and women marathon runners are known to perform better after childbirth, not only because of their ability to bear pain, but also because of testosterone. There are still a couple of Indian national records which are still in existence that came into being after the women gave childbirth. Actually, not childbirth, but they had forced abortions. There were at least 2 to 3 abortions of a specific athlete who I obviously won't take names here right now. In the past, 2 other athletes of India have been alleged, or rather have been accused of being, of a different gender. I mean, I don't know these differences between intersex, male, female, etc. Those athletes are now gone. Globally, 2 athletes, the most famous ones, one was in the 1930s. There was an athlete called Stella Walsh. She ran the Olympics, she even had a medal. She was accused of being more than a female, meaning to say that she had some male testosterone or something. In a very freak shopping accident in a mall, she was shot. She died. There was an autopsy carried out on her, and they discovered that she had male chromosomes. But by then she was dead and gone. Nobody could do that. And then in the 60s, there was another athlete called Eva Klobuska. Very interestingly, both of these athletes were Polish Americans. Eva, after she won a medal in the 60s, 64 I think, if my memory serves right, her medal was stripped away 2 or 3 years late, 2 or 3 or 4 years later. And lo and behold, a couple of years later, she gave birth to a child. So she was very much a woman, or at least the way we perceive women. So these are controversies, so hats off to Ekamra, to Anisha, to Duti, to Pinky, to Gopi, for having dealt with such a brave subject. In my 42 years of sports journalism, I think to be able to deal with a subject so openly in such a forum is absolutely remarkable. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the wonderful session.
I appreciate each and every word that you shared with the audience here and everybody watching us on some kind of a screen. May your fight for yourselves, all three of you, and for principles and values you believe in, and for sport, continue. All the very best. Thank you very much once again.
I also want to mention the name, only one name. Today, Tudi Pinky is alive with us. I want to remember Pratima Goankar, who was the first athlete who was accused not a female. She's very much female athlete from Goa in India, a Portuguese colony. She committed suicide. She ended her life in 2000, early 2000s, and we remember her because it's her courage and it inspired us to carry a lot of work. And then not many of us even know her name, Pratima Goankar, who's a very excellent swimmer from India, who ended her life actually. There were many athletes who ended her life. After Shanti's case, more than 250 female athletes left sports actually. Thank you.
I'll close this with a quote from the Academy Award-winning movie by Chloe Zhao called Nomadland. And it says, "What's remembered lives." And I hope, like the little mention that Gopi made, I hope all of you remember the struggles and trials and tribulations these individuals are going through, have gone through, and try raising more awareness through conversations and platforms by engagements like this. Thank you very much once again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. What a wonderful and insightful session by Anisha. And thank you so much for coming here. Can we all please stand together so that we can take a photograph?